Fired doctor saves a homeless man. The next day, four luxury cars pull up to his house. Dr. Daniel Carter sat in his car, staring at the hospital where he'd spent the last 15 years saving lives. His hands were clenched around the steering wheel, knuckles white. It was over. Fired. Just like that. Budget cuts, they'd said. Restructuring. But Daniel knew the truth. He had fought too hard for patients who couldn't pay, had spent too many extra hours in the ER when no one else wanted to. The hospital's bottom line mattered more than the people in its beds. The bitter taste of defeat sat heavy in his throat as he finally turned the ignition and drove aimlessly into the city. He didn't know where he was going, only that he needed to move. It was a cold evening, the kind that made the city's homeless even more invisible as they huddled beneath ragged blankets in the shadows. Daniel stopped at a red light and saw him, a man curled up in a doorway, shivering, his face gaunt and pale. Something about him made Daniel pause. Maybe it was the way his hands trembled. Maybe it was because he had nothing left to lose himself. Without thinking, he pulled over. "Hey, you all right?" Daniel crouched beside the man, his years of medical training kicking in. The man barely lifted his head. His breath was shallow. Fevered. Hypothermia. Infection. He wouldn't last the night. Daniel didn't hesitate. He lifted the man gently, bundled him into his car, and drove straight home. For hours, he worked, warming the man, cleaning his wounds, monitoring his vitals. The night stretched on, and exhaustion gnawed at him, but he refused to sleep. By dawn, the man was stable, resting on Daniel's couch. When the stranger woke, his eyes were filled with disbelief. "You saved me," he whispered. "Yeah," Daniel said softly. "I guess I did." The man's name was James. A veteran. Once a respected engineer. Life had taken everything from him, his wife, his job, his home. He had been wandering the streets for years, invisible to a world that once valued him. Before leaving, James grasped Daniel's hand. "I won't forget this." Daniel smiled. "Just take care of yourself." That morning, Daniel had no idea his life was about to change forever. The next day, as he sat sipping coffee, still grappling with what his future held, the sound of engines rumbled outside his small home. He peeked through the curtains, and his breath caught. 4 luxury cars. Black, sleek, and expensive. The doors opened simultaneously, and out stepped men and women in tailored suits, their faces unreadable. One of them, a tall man with silver hair, stepped forward. "Dr. Carter?" Daniel opened the door cautiously. "Yes." The man smiled. "You saved my father's life last night." Daniel blinked. "Your father?" "James," the man said, eyes filled with emotion. "We've been searching for him for years." The woman beside him, her voice trembling, added, "He was too ashamed to come home. We thought we'd lost him forever." Another man, younger, stepped forward, clearing his throat. "We know about what happened at the hospital. It was a terrible mistake." The silver-haired man handed Daniel an envelope. "Inside, you'll find an offer. We own one of the largest private medical centers in the country. We need doctors who care about people more than profit." Daniel's hands shook as he opened it. It wasn't just a job offer. It was a chance to build something, a clinic dedicated to treating people like James, people who had nowhere else to go. Tears burned his eyes. "You saved our father," the man said. "Now let us help you save many more." Daniel looked up at them, then back at his small, empty house. Yesterday, he had lost everything. Today, he had found his true purpose. And for the first time in a long time, he knew, he was exactly where he was meant to be.